There we go. Hey, and welcome to the delicious recipe here on UPRN. I got Big Jim there coming back on, and we are out of New Orleans. If you're watching, you could be checking us out on the UFO Paranormal Radio, UFO Paranormal Radio. That's the UPRN site, and UFO Gods and Extraterrestrials, and all the other sites there: SoundCloud, iTunes, iHeart, anywhere else that podcasts are played by UPRN. And this is the day after my birthday. I turned 52 on 25. So anybody that's into numerology, genealogy, astronomy, and stuff like that, maybe they might figure out what those numbers might mean. But and plus, I'm a Gemini too there. But tonight there got back here Big Jim Paris there, my old prospecting boss from before, and we've been talking about really interesting stories of mining in Ontario, Manitoba, and this one is going to deal with a part of Ontario, the northeastern part, Timmins area, where Shania Twain's from, down to Toronto and down to Buffalo, New York area, with some really interesting characters. And Big Jim's holding up a picture there, if you can see there. That's the Northern Miner. And welcome, Big Jim, and tell us what you're holding up.
Yeah, well, there's a big symposium going on in Timmins. It's just booming right now for a gold town. Timmins and Kirkland Lake, even up in Thunder Bay here, where they're opening a new mine. And
Sorry, that's my fault. I just had the other part on there. Go ahead. Yeah.
yeah, so Timmins and Kirkland Lake, big gold mining centers right now. The price of gold is great, and they're going to have a big symposium. A lot of mining companies going to be there. A lot of companies that sell hydraulic equipment for mining, and this is going to be June 8th to 9th. And you're right, Timmins, Ontario, Shania Twain. Whenever I say Timmins, people say, "Do you know Shania?" I said, "Well, of course, of course."
Yeah.
Actually,
And
I knew
what
her stepfather, Jerry Twain.
what was her real name before she became Shania?
Elaine.
Elaine, that's right.
Either
Elaine
Elaine or
Twain.
Eileen. I can never
Eileen or I
anyway.
think okay, but go on there. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're doing a mining story here today that originated out of Timmins. It's a pretty wild story, and
Hmm.
I hope Rocky's not watching, because if he is, he might be looking for me still, even though
Well, you don't have to worry about that because I got Hey You here. He's minding the ones and twos, and he's the protection guy there for the show. So we're all good for that there. And he's a little small little guy. He's a rock and roll guy, but also he's also deals with minerals and mining.
awesome.
Yeah.
So this story is going to be about bags of silver, and this is a sample that a mine manager gave me down in Cobalt one time when I worked at the college there. And you
Yeah.
can see the oxidation, the purple color that's indicative of cobalt, and you can see the metal. This is very rich, 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 right out of the vein of
Yeah.
cobalt. There'll be some silver with this too, but Cobalt is the town where they mined tons and tons of silver over the years, and it's
Right.
booming again too. Everything's booming right now, so good
And
on us.
what would you figure is the reason for that? Is that because of technology that they need these minerals, or is it for the new smart cars or anything like that? Would you think?
Well, the gold isn't needed. Lithium and the rare earth metals are what are needed for all this new technology that's coming along. And I see that I'm a little disappointed in the Canadian government, because they let the Chinese buy that lithium mine at Burnick Lake in Manitoba. And the Chinese are shipping lithium right now back to China. And I'm like, that's a Canadian asset. We should be looking after it ourselves. But
Yeah.
anyways, that
Yeah.
doesn't affect our story today.
Oh no. This is we're going into dealing with I call it the O.P.P. Buffalo Stakes. You call it the Silver to Buffalo story, and they both ring true in this whole thing. So let's start off at the beginning. How does this start off?
Well, I was playing in a band out of Timmins. The band was called the Fallen Leaves. and working with my dad. We were working for the Guggenheim family out of New York City, and every year they would fund us, and we were working up around Moosonee where the diamonds ended up being found. We were close to finding them. We did find a columbium deposit, which another company has right now. And of course, mainly we were looking for base metals as a result of the huge Kidd Creek ore body that was found just north of Timmins. So, we're talking 1968 here when one of my buddies approached me and said, "Hey, I need $200." I said, "Yeah, $200 for what?" $200
Right.
was a fair bit of change back in those days.
Right.
And he said,
1968, $200 is a lot. That's almost what you have to pay for a liter of gas right now in Canada.
so this fellow by the name of Barry Ainsworth came up to me and he said, "I need $200." I said, "What do you need $200 for?" He said, "I got something cooking. There's a guy flying into town, and he and I are going to do something together." And I said, "Well, is there money to be made here?" And he said, "Yeah, do you want in?" I said, "Well, if I'm going to lend you $200, I think I better ride shotgun on the situation." So
Right, right.
I lent him the $200, and he said, "We're going to go and meet Morris at the Bon Air Motel." And I said, "Okay, well, let's go." So we went over to the Bon Air, and I was a little shocked when I walked in the room. This guy had a holster strapped around his body, like you see on TV with the detectives, and he had
Yeah.
a handgun in the holster. And I'm like, "Hello, Barry. Who is this guy?" So he introduced me, and he said that this was the guy that he was going to do the deal with. I'm like, "What deal is that?" So we talked it over, and this Morris told me that what we were doing was there was 3 bags of silver from that had been mined or stolen or wherever it came from. Cobalt, anyways, is what he said, and
Right.
that we had to make a deal with another person to go and get the silver, and then we were supposed to transport it down to Buffalo, New York, right, just
Right.
where the big Niagara Falls and the American Falls is.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
So
that's the thing there is that so we're looking at that's about Timmins all or the part of the northeastern coming all the way down to Buffalo there. It's basically almost like a straight drop right down there through Toronto and that down to the Golden Horseshoe, which they call the Golden Horseshoe down there where everything is going on. So that's like about 8 hours you'd figure, eh?
yeah, 8-hour drive. Yeah.
Yeah.
So here's a picture. We're crossing the bridge at Latchford, and Barry and Dave are looking at the river there. And we're driving my '59 Chrysler. I believe that's what car it was.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
we had just passed through Cobalt, where the silver was actually from. And we were supposed to have the silver with us. But the story behind that is uh, we went and met another fella that Morris knew. And he said, "Have you got the money?" And Morris said, "Yeah, we got the money." Okay, well, here's the deal. Tonight we're going to go and drive in this gravel pit, and there's 3 bags of this silver buried there. And I'm like, "What? This is sort of sounds a little far out." And he said, "You guys wait for us at the entrance there. Uh, we're going to drive in, dig it up, we'll bring it out, we'll throw it in the trunk of your car real quick, and then you're gone." I was intending to go down to Toronto to buy some musical equipment for the band. Anyways,
Yeah.
Dave, our drummer, Dave Van Leuven, wanted to go along, and Barry, of course, was supposed to be making some money off of this. So uh, we we get all packed up. We're all ready to go. Gas up the car. Uh, Gas was at least a reasonable price in those days. And
Right.
we go back to the Peacock Garden and we meet up with Mr. X, who I had no idea who this fellow was, and Morris. And Barry and I meet with him. Dave's in the car. And now it's pitch black. We drive out to the gravel pit. They drive into Barry gave Morris and Mr. X the,
The
I think it was
cash.
$400. And they
Right.
drive in and we're waiting for them to come out. They don't come out. So we're like, after half an hour, we're like, well, where are they? Are they having trouble digging? Maybe they can't find the bags of silver. Maybe somebody dug them up already. So we
Right.
drive in there, look around, shine my headlights all around in the gravel pit. There's nobody there. So finally, I drove over by a bank there, and I could see these tracks went right up the bank. I couldn't believe anybody could drive up a bank that steep, about 70 degrees. And I climbed up there with my headlight shining, and there's an old bush road there. So they had gone in there, uh, driven up the bank and down the bush road and turned off their lights. And so we didn't see them come out of there. So that was when we knew we'd been scammed. They
Mm-hmm.
had the $400. There was no bags of silver that we ever saw.
Right.
But our mission was to deliver these to Rocky at Rocky's bar in Buffalo. And Rocky had already put up money with Morris to fly Morris up to Timmins. So now we're getting pretty antsy.
Right.
Rocky, Rocky's
I
not going
guess
to be.
I guess the part out of this is that for people that are listening is that now you guys are associated with, you're supposed to have possession, but somebody's gone and double scooped you and basically conned you out of money and stolen away with the silver.
Well, that was the situation at the time. Yeah, if in
Yeah.
fact there ever was any silver. I mean, I guess probably I'll never know. But all I know is that I had Mr. X there. We'll call him Mr. X for now. He
Yeah.
had phoned Rocky, and I'd been on the phone with Rocky. Barry had talked to Rocky, and he says, "Yeah, I'm waiting for you guys to bring me the silver." I gave Morris the money to fly up there and make a deal with Mr. X,
Yeah.
and so he said, "I'll be glad when you deliver it." Now, this silver was worth a fair bit of money. I'm guessing maybe about $8,000 or $10,000.
Okay,
And
this is back in 1968 time there, yeah, where precious metals were a little bit different than they are today.
yeah, well, I think Mr. X was buying this silver because he had a feeling that silver was going to go up. And of course, when the Hunt brothers tried to corner the silver market, it went up
Okay.
to $50 an ounce.
Hmm.
Even our money, our Canadian coins had so much silver in them, like a
Hmm.
quarter had so much silver that it was worth $1 just for
Yeah.
the melt it down to get the silver out.
Right, right. Yeah, I remember that whole thing. They did that in high school there. Anybody that had any coins or quarters that were before 1965, they were almost pure silver
Yeah.
or something like, or 65 or 63, somewhere around there, anyways. But anyways, let's continue on there. Sorry for stopping you in the middle of your story
No,
there.
that's fine, no problem. So the point is that nobody came out with the 3 sacks of silver. These guys have to drive up that bank and disappear down this bush road. I mean, it looked like we'd got scammed. So I was not too happy with Barry because I figure how's he going to pay me back for my $200?
Mhm.
So we went back to Timmins and we drove all around and looked for Mr. X and Morris. Couldn't find them anywhere. They weren't at the Chinese restaurant. So we drove over to the Bon Air Motel. Rainy Vinecourt, I've told you that story before, how he used to run along the roof and listen in at the
Yeah, right, right, right.
the bathroom. He could hear every word going on in those rooms. So
Right.
we get there and no sign of Morris. The room is wide open, and we go in and we're talking this over, and we're sort of in shock. What's happening here? Did we miss something, or why did what? How can this be a scam? What about Rocky? He's not going to be very happy when if we get down there. We better go and tell him that we got scammed and hope throw ourselves at his mercy.
Right, right.
So we thought, you know what, Morris will, Morris needs to talk to us. So we grabbed a TV, we grabbed a radio, we grabbed uh, a few other fixtures in the room, and we threw them in my car. We
Right.
drove out to South Porcupine, put them in the trunk of Roger Perro's '53 Monarch. Roger owed me $500. We were playing in a band together called the Voodoos, and he needed money, so I lent him $500, and he gave me that '53 Monarch for security. It was in pretty nice shape. So we put the articles in the trunk of the Monarch, and we
Yeah.
hit the road. We hit the road for Toronto.
Yeah.
So finally, we got into Toronto, and by that time it was like we'd left around 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning. So it was early morning, had some breakfast, and then we headed out for Rocky's Bar in Buffalo. And we got
Okay.
to
Yeah.
I think they call it the Freedom Bridge. It's some bridge that goes over to, there's several
Yep.
bridges around Niagara Falls there that go over to Buffalo, New York.
Yep.
And we got to the customs and they said, okay, let's see some ID. So I was fine. I showed them my ID. Okay, yeah, Jamesy, you're okay. Who's this guy? Well, this is Barry. Okay, he shows his ID. They run him. Sorry, criminal record. I'm like, Barry, you never told me that criminal record. Well, it's a story. It's a sad story. Blah blah blah. And that'll come out later in the story.
Yeah.
So, and Dave Van Leuven, our drummer, who was just sort of really innocent in all this, he wasn't a naturalized citizen of Canada. He was born in Holland, and he came over, and his dad worked at the Domex mine, so he couldn't get. I'm the only guy that could get across. Well, I didn't really want to go to Rocky's bar and talk to Rocky myself because this wasn't even my idea to begin with. I just
Right.
threw $200 in on it. So we drive back over to Canada, but turn around and drive back to Canada. And we drop Dave off at this hotel that was close to the falls there. And
Yeah.
that's the picture here. Here's Barry peering down into the gorge. And
Right. Right.
here's Dave and Barry. We're up in there's a big rotating tower there that where you can it's like a bar restaurant.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And
And yeah,
so
that's in the Niagara Falls area, right?
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
so now Barry and I go back to the customs but we go to a different bridge because we couldn't get across. We obviously weren't going to get across that same bridge. We probably would have got in trouble if we'd have tried to cross that. So
Yeah.
they didn't
Yeah.
ask us any questions at the other bridge. Now we're in Buffalo. We drive around. Somebody tells us, yeah, well, Rockies is down in a bit of a seedy part of town. And we had a couple of buddies, Terry Kuzik from Harry's Menswear in Timmins, and Diamond Jim Brady. And they'd both had adventures down in Buffalo, and they'd been telling us about these adventures where somebody shot at them. And we're like, ooh, we don't know about this. So
Yeah.
we finally find Rocky's Bar. We go in, we asked the bartender, there wasn't very many people in there. And we said, is Rocky here? He says, nope, Rocky's not here. Well, we'll wait. No, well, there's no use waiting. He's at the races. We're like, what races is that? Horse races. Okay. Well, we really need to talk to Rocky and explain something to him. And the bartender says, well, you can tell me. Oh, no, we're not telling anybody but Rocky. So Ainsworth is Barry's arguing with the bartender that we really need to see Rocky. And I'm
Yeah.
looking at the bottles of booze behind I see a jug of Canadian Club there. And I'm
Yeah.
looking at all these different brands and different kinds of booze. And all at once I see this little trap door there slide open and these beady eyes look out at me. And I'm like, oh my God. And I'm pretty sure that was Rocky because the
Yeah.
bartender had gone back and he came back and he said, no, Rocky's can't talk to you. He's at the races. And I'm like, who's that? Who's that looking out at us? And the bartender he didn't realize that I'd seen this eyes. And he said, oh my God, he made some exclamation mark. And, and right away we decided that, you know what, we weren't sticking around. So we tore out of the bar, jumped in the car and took off because we had bad vibes.
Yeah. Did
So
you
we
do you
get
know?
back.
Did you ever find out who this Rocky was?
Well, I mean, the bar was named after him. He was a real guy. No, we never really found out who he was, but we knew that he had money in the deal.
And
And
he
when when a
might
guy
have been
peers out at
connected.
you,
Might have been connected or something like that. Like
well, come on, I imagine.
you're right. I'm sort of trying to paint the picture for the listeners out there that this the very very seedy, maybe a low level person that had sort of a little part of something there, but could probably do bad things because he knew other people.
Well, all I know is when you can't get to meet Rocky and explain your story to him, and then somebody peeps out through a peephole there and looks at you,
Yeah.
it makes you pretty nervous.
Oh, no doubt.
So we jumped back in the car. We took off. We drove across the bridge. Pardon me. We went and picked up Dave, and we drove back into Toronto.
Right.
So we were in Toronto about half an hour. We were parked in front of the Cock Door where Ronnie Hawkins played. And I knew Bo Diddley was playing there, and I really wanted to see Bo Diddley. And Dave, of course, our drummer, wanted to see him. I did a song in the band with it started off with Bo Diddley, and then I backed it with "Who Do You Love," and it turned into be like a half-hour set song where the guys would do this. The lead guitar player would play a phenomenal break for 10 minutes, and then I'd sing, "Hey, Bo Diddley,"
Yeah.
And then we do "Who Do You Love?" Walk 47 miles of barbed wire, got a cobra skin for a necktie. I live in a house by the roadside, made out of rattlesnake hide.
A big long 25-minute long jam session.
Yeah, that's what it was. So
Yeah.
we're back in Toronto. We're parked in front of the Cock Door, and we're waiting to for the to get in there. Bo Diddley's set was going to start around 8 o'clock, whatever. And all at once, there's a cop on horseback.
Yeah.
There's 2 beat cops, and there's 2 squad cars surround us. And we're like, what's happening? So they searched the car, look in the trunk. I got a couple of old guitars in there. I was intending to buy some new stuff at Long and McQuaid's. And they asked us some weird questions. Where are you guys from? Timmins. Okay. What do you know about the stuff being stolen from the Bon Air Motel? Nothing. We don't know anything. So they let us go. So we tuned in with Bo Diddley there, and it was pretty cool. He had his sister with him, the Duchess, and Ronnie did a set. Bo Diddley did some music with his band. I should have.
You okay there, Jim?
I'm gonna live. I'm gonna live.
Okay.
Well, I got out of Rocky's bar, so I feel pretty good about that.
Yeah.
Anyways, we go to our hotel, and Barry had checked us in there, and we go up to the room and we throw the mattress. You know the old trick about 3 guys staying in one room, paying for one guy to stay there.
Yeah, exactly.
We throw the mattress on the floor. Dave crashes on the mattress. Barry and I crash on the bed. Pretty soon we hear bang, bang, bang. What's happening? I get up, open the door. Here's more cops. They come ripping into the place, and they said, "Okay, what's your name?" I said, "Jim." They said, "Well, where's Abe Freeman?" I said, "Who?" They said, "Abe Freeman, the guy this room's registered to." I don't know. Who the hell's Abe Freeman? They get Barry. What's your name? Barry. Well, you're not Abe Freeman either. And we had to show ID who we were. Right. So they figured now there's only one guy left. Dave's sleeping in his gotchis on the floor there, or on the mattress, pardon me. And the one cop grabs him by the gotchis and rips him half off and hoists him up a bit. And he says, "Okay, Freeman, come on, we want to talk to you." And Dave says, like, "Who the heck is Abe Freeman?" And they said, "Well, you must be Abe Freeman because those guys aren't." And Dave is just totally bewildered who Abe Freeman is. So then they look in my wallet and they find my gun license and they say, "Oh, tough guy, you pack a gun, eh?" I said, "No, I don't pack a gun, but I'm a prospector. I work in the bush. There's bears in the bush. And so I have a permit to carry when I'm working in the bush only, not to bring down to Toronto."
Yeah.
So they said, "You know what? You guys are coming down to station 55 to be questioned." So right there and then I thought, up until this point, apart from the Rocky thing, then escaping from Rocky justice, I thought this was sort of a bit of a, but when they said we're going to be questioned at 55, and you know about 55 and 52.
Yeah. Well, 55 and 52, those were ones that you always wanted to sort of stay away from. And there was I told you the story earlier. There was a whole expose on they called them the Cherry Beach Police down in Toronto. So
Oh
the
yeah.
people that were sort of gave police a hard time because, like, you know what, there is a lot of really nice cops out there, but then there's a lot of ones that think that they run the world, and so they used to take them down to this place around Cherry Beach where there was no lights for about 2 kilometers, and that'd be about a mile and a half for the rest of the people out there that are still working with Imperial, and they would just take you out of the car handcuffed and beat the living heck out of you, and then throw you back in the car, and then bring you down to the station, throw you in the cell, and says you resisted arrest, right? So that was that little part of that story, but that's
So
that's 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 for another time. But
so we
anyways,
get down to 55, and they take us up to the interrogation rooms, and they got Dave in one room and Barry and I in another room, and the policeman comes in and he says, "Okay, I want you guys to empty your pockets." So we empty everything out, our wallets, our change, and everything onto the table. And then for some reason, oh, I know what, he had to talk to one of the other policemen in the other room. So he
mhm.
goes out, and all at once Barry looks at me and he says, "Oh my God." He said, "I can't believe this." He said, "I must have taken this key out of the room. He's got a key for the Bon Air Motel." And
Oh geez.
we pretty well got it figured out that, the stuff that we took out of the Bon Air Motel has got to be why these guys are on our case, because they didn't know
Mhm.
anything about Rocky or the silver. We told them what the whole scam was about. They didn't know anything about that, and they didn't care. But boy, they were, the Timmins police must have phoned them and said these guys boosted this stuff out of the Bon Air Motel room.
Yeah. And
And
there now you have a guy there that has the key to the room that stuff was taken
yeah,
out of.
yeah. So I told Barry, I says, "Give me that key." So I grabbed the key and I stuck it in my sock. So he came back and he said, "Did you empty everything out of your pockets?" "Yes, sir, we did." He didn't say anything about it. Did we empty out our socks? So
Right.
at least I was telling the truth. And so Barry decides he's going to mouth off to this guy. He had quite a protruding nose, and
Yeah.
he gets mad and he calls this guy. Can I say it on TV?
You can call him Pecker Nose, yes.
Yeah, he calls this guy Pecker Nose. I'm Barry. Like, are you nuts? You can't, insult a cop like that. It's not good poetry.
Right.
So the cop grabs him, takes him in the other room, and next thing I hear, Barry moaning and groaning and screaming and yelling. He's getting a beating, and he still has the audacity to call this guy. He says, "I'm going to get even with you, Pecker Nose," and I'm like, you can't beat any sense into this guy.
That's right. He probably beated the name into his brain. So now
Yeah.
that's all he can think about.
So, anyways, they had nothing on us, and they finally let us go. So we go back to the hotel. We crash. We spent a day or two in Toronto. I bought some musical equipment, and Dave wanted to get some new drums. So we pack all this in the car. We take off back to heading up the highway there to Barrie, and then, no pun intended, and then North Bay. And we get to North Bay. It's pitch dark out there, 10 o'clock at night, and the O.P.P pull us over. And so we get pulled over. They search the car. They find the guitars. They find the stuff we'd bought in Toronto.
Yeah.
And they don't say anything to us about why we got pulled over. But they let us go. So we
Hmm.
get back to Timmins. We drop Dave off out at the Domex mine, and Barry and I drive into. By that time, it's the next morning. We drive
Hmm.
into Timmins because we're driving on. There's a main highway, and then there's a back road that goes into Timmins. And
Right. Yep.
we drive down the main street. Bam! Two cruisers pull us over. Okay, you guys are going to the police
The who's
station.
You
So
guys
we
are
go
going to
to
the Hooskow.
the Hooskow. So
Yeah.
anyways, we get over to the Hooskow, and Barry starts acting up again and calling them, saying things to these cops. So he goes in a room again with them, and bam, bam, bam. And I can hear him yelling, "I'm Barry, can you never learn your lesson that you do not talk to policemen? Not a
Yeah.
good idea.
Yeah.
So, and I'm being, pretty polite myself because I don't want to get a beating again. I already had
Yeah.
one beating from the Timmins police the year before. So, anyways, finally they decide that Barry's going to jail, and that they take me in and they're going to fingerprint me. And like, I really don't want to be fingerprinted. So the guy's
Yeah.
holding my hand and he's pressing it down on the ink pad. And I
Yeah.
said, you know what? I want to talk to the head guy, the head detective here. So they
Hmm.
go and get the head detective, a fellow by name of Angelo.
Yeah.
And I said, I'd like to talk to you privately, sir. Okay. And we go in a room, just the two of us. And I said, listen, this is what happened to us. We're innocent people. We got scammed by Mr. X, by Morris, and
Yeah.
we went down to Rocky's bar to make things right with Rocky and tell him what happened so that he didn't come looking for us in Timmins.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's already sent Morris, a guy with a gun, up to Timmins. What
Yeah.
we don't want to get on the bad side of Rocky. So how's our time? 7:35. Okay, so
Yeah. No, we got time there. Yeah. Yeah. We're good.
So
Yeah.
Angelo says to me, he says, well, that's quite a story. He said, you expect me to believe that story? And I said, well, I sure hope so, because every word is true.
Hmm.
And he said, okay, well, what about this stuff from the Bon Air? He says, I'm not very happy about that stuff disappearing. And I
Hmm.
said, well, I don't know really, what happened, who took it, but I might be able to retrieve it, get it back to you. He says, well, there's a few other things I'm not very happy about. And we didn't know that the Bon Air people had phoned the police. Well, we were figuring it out pretty quick,
Right.
and that the police had checked out the room and it was registered to this Morris, and they'd
Yeah.
gone out to the airport and grabbed him, and I guess they got his. I don't know if the gun was legal or not, but they had him in jail in Timmins. And
Oh,
then when
wow.
they went, when
So
they
that's
went,
why you couldn't. That's why you couldn't find Morris in Toronto because he was already in jail in Timmins. What you just left, right?
yeah, that's right. So uh, anyways, uh, so what happened was, I guess there was some kind of an incident, and something got left in the room from a romantic encounter, and Angela was like really upset about that.
Okay. Well, I'll say it. You don't have to say it. It was a used condom full of semen that was there, and dealing with the police were very Catholic at the time, so this really upset them. I'll say it. I'll take the blame all on myself for the part
all
of
right,
the
all
story.
right. Well, thank
Yeah.
you, appreciate
Yeah.
that. So. I like, and we didn't have a clue then that this guy was Dave's cousin, and they had sent Angelo had sent two detectives up to Ansonville, Iroquois Falls, and they
Yeah.
arrested him and brought him back down to Timmins. So he was in jail too. So now we got Barry's in jail, Morris is in jail, uh, uh, Neil is
Neil
in jail,
Neil is in jail. Yeah. Okay. I'm just
and I'm
circling all the
I'm
names
on the
here.
verge of going to jail.
Yeah.
But I tell Angelo, I said, listen, I think I can retrieve these Bon Air items for you
Yeah.
if you just will drop the charges against, I
All
mean,
of
he would told us he was going to charge us with, and I mean, like, how are you going to prove this? I said that we have that stuff, and he said, well, I don't know, but it must be you guys.
yeah. It says
So, anyways,
it says
I made a
my
deal with.
my other musician owes me $500, so I stuck the TV and the radio in the back of his car.
Well, yeah, I was figuring that if I cracked about the stuff being in Roger's car and they went and got it, maybe Roger would be going to jail too, because they think that he had something to do with this. They wouldn't know the story about he owed me the car for security. So,
Yeah.
anyways, we work out a plan here, and Angelo tells me, he says, I think he liked me because I was being honest with him. And he wasn't very happy to hear that this guy in Mr. X in the Peacock Gardens there had scammed us. And he was wondering who that guy could possibly be and
Yeah.
why he was involved because he knew all the other players. So he told me, he said, if you can contact the people that have this stuff, and you can leave it on the loading dock in South Porcupine, where at the post office, and I'll have a couple of officers around the corner in a squad car, and you phone me from South Porcupine, because that's where our office was and that's where I
Yeah.
live, and I'll phone them, and you disappear, and they'll come and pick it up. And I said, well, okay, that works, and I'm not involved, and hopefully I won't have to go to jail. So he said, yeah, don't worry about it. He said everything, but he said, I really would like to know who Mr. X is, and how he's involved in this whole scam.
Well, this is the thing I think I said to you there earlier is it says, okay, so he's going to have a couple officers just sit there on the road waiting for you to go and drop off this stuff there. So there you can see how great our tax dollars are working for people. They just like, hey, yeah, well, when you get there, they'll just be sitting there around the corner waiting for you to go and drop this merchandise off. That's their whole job. They're not going to be out there protecting the public. They're just waiting to get this stuff back to the Bon Air, where this Bon Air owner goes and listens down the ear pipes to listen. Right?
Listen, you better be careful. You better be careful, because his son was like 320 pounds, and I saw him in a fight one night that Barry was in, and he went into the washroom, and he came out with 4 guys, two in each hand. And he dragged them outside and threw them out in the snow. Like, I don't want to mess with that guy.
Well, I remember that whole part about the Carl Forbes story there. That's another one there that with the winter time with you got all nuts and then came in with the pickaxe there and put it through the stove and that. But that's a story for another time there, people.
Yeah, that's another story. Yeah. Well, listen, you're welcome to have your opinion about the Timmins police or whatever and protecting the public. All I know is this had nothing to do with me to begin with, except that I gave Barry $200 to get involved in this thing. and this is causing me nothing but grief. And I'm, I was on the verge of being in serious trouble. I mean,
well, at least you got to travel across Ontario and down to the States. You became a world traveler.
Yeah, well, thank you. Appreciate the good wishes. So finally, I'm in the clear. I'm living my life. My dad says, well, we're going to ship you off up to Moosonee and go and stake some claims up there in the James Bay lowlands.
Yeah.
Now, that was quite a job. Water up to my chest, wading through the swamps. So finally, after about a week, Ainsworth got out of jail. So he phones me, and I went and picked him up. And he said, we got to find that Mr. X guy. So we went to the Peacock Gardens that night. And guess what? There was Mr. X with a couple other fellas. And as soon as we walked in and Barry saw him, he ran right over there and he started calling this guy names. And I'm like, Barry, and like swearing. And I said, and I'm like, Barry, there's 3 guys there and there's you and me. So I don't know. I don't like the odds. So, and finally this guy, and Barry was swearing, and finally this guy said, hey, you know what? I'm a police officer and I have the right to arrest you for swearing in a public place, profanity. And I'm like, oh, this guy's a police officer. And it turned out the best we could find out was he was an undercover O.P.P officer that worked on the Gold Squad. And they had a rumor, came up from Cobalt, I guess, to Timmins, that somebody had pilfered these 3 bags of silver, 3 sacks of silver, which was, worth a fair bit of money at the time, from one of the mines, and that it was in the Timmins area. So I guess the only thing I could put together was, I guess, Mr. X schmoozed Morris.
Yeah.
And, so I asked him, I said, well, does this mean we're going to get our money back or what? He says, no. Your money's long gone. He said, you'll never see that money again. So I'm like, okay, Barry, you owe me $200.
So out of this whole part there, this is how this whole thing where I brought the title in there, O.P.P Buffalo Stakes, because it goes down the Buffalo in that, is that out of this, it was a crooked officer that set up to go and try and make money for, I guess, whatever, his retirement or his nest egg and stuff like that. and had concocted this whole thing that you got mixed into by a friend of yours that thought he could make a quick buck.
Well, I don't know if I buy that part of it. We gave the money to
Okay.
Morris. We gave the $400 to Morris.
Oh,
He
okay, to
seemed
Morris. Yeah,
he
okay.
seemed to know. I think the undercover officer was uh, schmoozing with Morris because why does Morris show up in Timmins with
Right.
with a gun under his in a holster?
Yeah.
And he's I think the undercover guy knew that Morris had something to do with these. I still honestly believe that there were 3 bags of silver somewhere along the line. I just never got to see. This is the closest I got. Is my beautiful
Yeah.
sample here. See the
Yeah.
high
And that's
grade. That's silver and cobalt in there, right out of the vein. That's
yeah.
like I sent my big, nice silver sample up to the museum in Snow Lake. So
Oh,
uh,
but the thing is that this is okay. Now, if we go and critique this whole story there, out of there, so for $200, it cost you two nights in jail and all that gas money to travel all the way down to Buffalo and back. Well, you had to go to Toronto anyways to go buy some instruments. So
well,
that was
not only that, but I got to see Ronnie Hawkins, my old
oh
buddy.
that yeah,
Let me
and
sleep in his office, and I got to meet Bo Diddley and his sister.
yeah.
And uh, I mean,
What?
it was sort of cool in a way,
Yeah.
uh, you know. But
What was Bo Diddley's sister like?
well, they called her the. I don't. I guess it was a nickname. I don't know. The people in the band called her the Duchess.
Okay.
She was. I mean, the band was all black. Bo Diddley obviously was black,
Hmm.
and she would sing a couple songs.
Yeah.
And of course, Ronnie was grooming the Hawks at the time, and
Yeah.
who most of them turned out later to be the band.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm sending. I don't know if anybody will hear this and phone Ronnie, but I'm sending best wishes to Ronnie. I heard he's, not in the greatest of health, but
Oh, geez, that's too bad to hear. Yeah.
Robbie
Because he.
Roberts, Robbie Robertson from the band. Ronnie told me there about a month ago. He phones Ronnie every second day and checks on his health. And Wanda, Ronnie's wife,
Mhm.
she's very concerned about him, and she and I correspond. I've told her stories about David Clayton Thomas and
Yeah. Yeah.
hey, they know all the musicians. Ronnie, Ronnie was from Arkansas, but he was a big deal in. And I just met somebody the other day, and they said, "Hey, Ronnie Hawkins has a beautiful, beautiful farm or whatever, a cabin, whatever, down around Peterborough.
Okay.
Good for him. I'm happy for him
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
he's a really good guy. We'd go to Toronto, and we didn't have much money, the
Yeah.
band, and what money we did have, we had to buy clothes up at Yorkville Village. We
Yeah.
had we had to eat. We had
Yeah.
to. You know, do the things that bands do, drink a few
Mhm.
beers in the bar, and
Yeah.
but on the other hand, a motel like hotel rooms cost money. So Ronnie
Yeah.
said, "You can crash in my office."
Yeah.
So we
That that
did.
that that's what you talked about there. And for people that are listening there, Yorkville is the really uppity part there. It's Young and Bloor Street to the northwest. I used to live in the annex off of DuPont Street, and which was just over. So I was right on the cusp of Yorkville and the annex. And the annex was sort of like the lower part, and that's where all the college university people were sort of staying there. And but Yorkville was totally
It was
upper class.
a trendy
Oh
place.
yeah, for sure. Yeah,
All
everybody.
the clubs were there. Gordon Lightfoot used to sing
Oh yeah, yeah,
at the one club, and Joni Mitchell, and
yeah.
that whole scenario there spawned a whole bunch of bands.
Hmm.
So just to finish this story off,
Yeah.
uh, we discussed that earlier. Was Carl and I were up on Trollope Lake, right on the border of Quebec, and Ontario, north of Timmins, and I had a crew in there staking. We were staking about 400 claims on a big uh, triangular geological structure that one of the geologists had called the result of toilet bowl tectonics.
Right, right.
It's sort of like, it was like a toilet bowl, and he said everything got flushed down, and I'm like, okay, well, sounds wild to me. But so Carl and I went in there in our skidoos. We had a skirmish with a couple of O.P.Ps and game warden. We weren't wearing helmets, and they admonished us for that. And when we used to have a camp on Charlotte Lake when we were drilling in there, and
Yeah.
at one time the only way in there was to fly in, and I almost got killed in a plane incident there, but that'll be another story too. And
Yeah.
we saw some ice fishermen people out on the lake, so we went over there, and lo and behold, it was Barry's sister from Timmins. And I said, I knew her, and I said, "How are you doing?" She was with her husband and I think one or two of their kids. And
Yeah.
I said, "Have you hear from Barry at all, or what's happening?" Blah blah blah. And oh, by the way, he owes me $200 uh, that I'll probably never see. And she said, "Well, you will probably never see it because, to the best of our knowledge, Barry was managing a hotel somewhere in South America, and he got involved in a drug deal down there, and apparently he got killed." That
Wow.
was according to his sister. So I don't know. I guess I'm just out $200. That's all.
Yeah. Well, if you put the interest on that, that's probably 2 million now.
Well,
If you do it, by the way, the Canadian government charges taxes on stuff there. They go like this: you owe $100 this day, and then 2 days later you owe 400. But that's
I was at a Flin Flon reunion. Of
yeah.
course, Flin Flon's well known for the. Have we got a few minutes yet?
Oh yeah, we still got yeah about 3 minutes there left
The
before
Flin Flon Bombers hockey team, and there was
yeah.
a defenseman played there by the name of Bill Dobbin. And when I was
Mhm.
a young kid, about 10 years old, I used to deliver papers. And so I used to deliver my papers to their door. And every time I'd go deliver another paper, the papers would always be gone. And then I would knock on the door and I would say, "Collect, time to collect." And I could hear them talking inside there. It must be the paper boy. Be quiet and he'll go away.
Yeah.
So I wrote that in a story for a magazine up there, Cottage North. And one of the other Bomber hockey players, I think it was Carl Forster, he saw that and he told Bill Dobbin that I had said in my story that Dobbin and his buddy still owed me $5 for delivering these papers to them.
Right, right.
Papers were like 10 cents a piece. And
Yeah.
so I get up to Flin Flon. I'm talking to Gus Gillies there, my old buddy. And there's this guy in his late 80s. And, but he looked pretty rangy. And I don't know, he still looked like he was capable. And he came up to me and he said, "Are you James E. Paris?" And I said, "Yeah, yeah, that's me." And he said, "Well," he said, "I wasn't too happy about you writing that story in Cottage North magazine about how I owed you $5." And
Yeah.
I said, "Well, I don't care if you're really that happy or not, because you
You
still owe
still
me five
only
bucks."
$5.
And he said, "You know what? We're going to settle this right now." So I'm figuring, well, I better, give him a boot or a punch
Yeah.
or whatever. And he pulls out his wallet and he's only got $10.
Yeah.
And so he says, "Here, this will even up the $5." And I
Yeah.
said, "Yeah, well, with interest, it'd be a little more than $10." "No, no,"
Yeah.
he says, "I'm only giving you $5. You got to give me $5 back. I want my change, or else." So luckily, I think Gus had some money on him, and he gave me changed a $10 bill, and I gave Bill Dobbin back his other $5, and everybody was happy.
That's awesome. Well, we
Only in
gotta.
Flin Flon, right, Dell?
Yeah, that's it. All these little small towns across northern Canada and northern Manitoba, you meet the most interesting people. We talked about the guitar player that lived in his parents' clothing store in Flin Flon, Manitoba. That you
Tony
left me
Tulis. His name
that
was Tony
you
Tulis.
left me with for like about 3 hours, and he was he was playing. He says, "Hey, we're gonna play you a song," and I was like, "Oh, okay, this is interesting." And after 25 minutes, says, "Okay, that's the intro." I went, "What? Oh my God!" It says, "I thought we were gonna jam out together," and he's just going and playing. I said, "Okay, well, that's what happens when you make your own LSD. I guess you sort of get lost in your own world or whatever he was making there." I
He
don't know.
told me that the song was called "Icicles Melting" or something.
Yeah, icicles melting. That was the intro.
Oh my God.
Yeah, no, it had to go through all the rest of the seasons.
Hey, we'll have
So,
to the Barry Hoglander story. We'll have to tap into that sometime.
oh, for sure there. Jim, I want to thank you very much for being a great guest and for coming back on again there, because I know I love all these stories and I think these stories are great. And I think these stories are just interesting and they're out there. And you know what? I love them all. And I think they just all be just should be saved out there. So I
Well,
want
I'm
to
not
say,
too happy about telling the story how stupid I was to lend Barry Ainsworth $200. So,
you
I
know what? That's what you live and let live, or live and learn. There you
they
go.
are Barry and Dave the drummer.
Yeah, awesome.
All
Okay,
right, you're
so
welcome. You're welcome.
Jim, I'll have you back on again there in the near future. And you know what? This has been the delicious recipe. We got the Red Pill News, I think, with Michael Angley there coming up after this. And you know what? This is Thursday. Look at all this stuff. There's so much more stuff out there, people, to listen to, and I hope you enjoy. And you
Thousand
know what?
claims. I just staked 1,000 claims at Geraldton.
There you
Another
go.
gold
Yeah,
mine coming up.
by computer.
Yeah.
You go. Okay, so good night, everybody. We'll see you all there next Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern, here on UPRN, the delicious recipe.
Okay.